All right, we're live here on Community Chat with Tony and Kat, our second episode ever. This episode is focusing on Mission Possible. My name is Anthony Medina, also known as Tony. And then who do we got over there, Catherine? Can you introduce yourself as well?
My name is Catherine Collins, also known as Kat, I guess, for this Zoom call. And I'm a senior at Gonzaga, and I'm studying international relations and some other random stuff. But I'm a marketing intern at CCE, and so I get to do fun stuff with this, or like this, with Tony on a daily basis.
Yeah. And we really quickly want to kind of frame what Community Chat is. We started our first episode 2 weeks ago, and we'll continue to do things like this going forward. But Community Chat is a opportunity for the Center for Community Engagement to converse with some really cool people about topics and issues that are affecting our community here in Spokane, and programs and opportunities that our office offers out in the world. And so really wanted to connect with community partners, with students, with our faculty and staff to bring to light what's happening here, what's happening in our community, what's happened over the last semester, so that we can keep our students in the loop, so that we can keep our community partners in the loop with everything that's happening. So the genesis of this really came about a few weeks ago. Last episode, we did not explain how the name came about, but Phoebe in our office suggested Community Chat, and she rhymed Tony and Kat. So neither of us actually go by our names in the title. My father's Tony. I'm not actually Tony. I love being called Tony secretly. Not so secret now. Catherine, I don't think I've ever called you Kat. Is that right?
I didn't know that you liked being called Tony.
I've never called
you. No, you've never called me Kat. But I'm pretty sure, I think Joe Johnston is on this call, and he definitely has taken the liberty of calling me Kat in email, so.
Awesome. Okay. So Community Chat with Tony and Kat, episode number 2, Mission Possible. Catherine, do you want to introduce our guest, Darcy, who will be teeing us off and explaining Mission Possible? I guess I just did it, so sorry.
Well, Darcy is our program manager for all of our service immersions through CCE. So she does the hard work of making sure all of the gears are turning and coordinates with the student leaders who coordinate everything else. So she's our head honcho, and she's going to explain Mission Possible to us. Go for it, Darce.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for being here today. So just briefly, a little bit about what Mission Possible is. So obviously it's our Spring Break Immersion program, and we have students travel to a variety of places across the country. Every year it's kind of a different number. This year we ended up going to 4 locations because of some last minute changes. But each location we focus on a different social justice topic, and I think the experience really allows students to learn about some of the structural and social inequalities that affect communities across the US. And also we engage in reflection and conversation about the experience, and then hopefully think about ways we can bring it back to Spokane or our home communities to kind of share stories and engage with issues wherever we end up next. So it's a little bit, but you will hear more from all of our participants.
It's a lot to pack into a week. So fun, Miss Phillips. Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
All right. I want to hear some introductions.
Yeah.
Can we run?
Wait, real quick. I just wanted to explain. I wanted to explain to our audience. Sorry, wanted to explain to our audience how the show is going to go. And so we have our panelists here with us, 4 panelists who Catherine will tee up in a second. But we'll take us through kind of interview style, panelist style questions. And so we have a few guiding questions for them, but also we want your voice in the conversation as our guests. So if you have questions, you have thoughts you want to put in the chat, please do. I'm getting word that Zoom is asking us to shut down, but we're not going to. They say that we're breaking the server. We have so many listeners across the country, internationally. I have my Tia Alba in Ecuador. She's listening in right now. My friend Dan Wolfskill in Tbilisi. Uncle Joe in North Jersey. Catherine, who's listening from you?
My
I'm
Uncle
not seeing them in the
Joe.
chat, but they are listening.
Yeah, my Uncle Joe and from Florida. He's also
You have an
here.
Uncle Joe too?
I do, don't we all? And then,
We all
Gran
do,
made it from Massachusetts. Wow. Lexi
Literally
Butler.
thousands of listeners right now, thousands across the country, across the world. So it's a great show. We're really excited. Catherine, get us started.
Wow, this happened last time. We need to find a better server. All right, we're gonna run through some introductions so you can get to know our panelists before we start. So we're gonna go down the line. If you could tell us a little bit about yourself. So who are you? What's your name? And what's your role on campus? Or what's your year if you're a student? What are you studying? These are a lot of questions, so take notes. Where did you go on Mission Possible? And then perhaps what's your favorite memory of a meal on the trip for fun?
I am Emma Leary. Hi, everyone. I'm a senior at Gonzaga. I'm a business administration major concentrating in HR and long public policy, and I have a dance minor as well. I've been on Mission Possible for 4 years. So I've been to Tacoma, Chicago, Neah Bay, and San Francisco in that order, and I led San Francisco. For meals, Neah Bay, I just have this really distinct memory of Special K. Just always, I had this like zip up with a pocket right here, and whenever we would go somewhere, I would just fill it with Special K. And so I just had Special K wherever we were. So Special K is a very fond food for me because of Mission Possible.
Like loose Special K, Emma? Are we talking like
Yes.
crumbles all in the pocket? Wow.
Crumbles in the pocket.
You're a brave little soul. It's a fun snack. Wow.
My name's Courtney. I am a sophomore accounting major, and I went to Denver, and we ate so many chocolate chip cookies, and it was amazing because I think I would have gone through withdrawal if I was like without cog cookies. But we just got like huge sheets of Walmart chocolate chip cookies, so that was our go-to snack, I would say.
Nice, Emma. I hear your leader was a bit of a cookie monster, so that makes sense.
Awesome. Hi, I'm Thomas. I'm a sophomore on campus. I'm just a regular old student. And I've been on Mission Possible twice. I went to Tacoma last year and Neah Bay this year. And memorable food. Probably just regular old granola bars. I'm pretty sure we ate, I personally ate like 75 granola bars over the week because they're just so easy and so delicious.
Thomas, there's nothing regular about A, your beard, and then B, that amount of granola bars. That's highly impressive.
Yeah, what kind of granola bars are we talking there, Thomas? Like what brand? What brand did you use? Did you eat?
Oh gosh, I don't know. I think they're just the Kirkland, they're in a blue package. They're just like the chocolate chip ones. You can buy them in big boxes, and we just had this big box that I probably ate 3 or 4 every time I walked by.
Yeah, Kirkland over Nature Valley every time.
We might run into some technical difficulties. That's not abnormal.
No problem. Will I go next?
Go for it, Deirdre.
Hi, Dave. I'm Deirdre, or Dee. I was the faculty advisor on the trip to Denver, and I'm the Fulbright at Gonzaga for this year, but I'm actually home in Dublin now. But I'm still teaching online, but I'm teaching Irish Gaelic at Gonzaga as part of the Fulbright program. And I would say my go-to snack, not really a snack, but I needed Diet Coke to get me through the week. So I had a couple of bottles in the fridge. That was mine.
That's awesome. Does that work exactly like coffee for you once you get it hit?
Yeah, because I don't like tea or coffee, so I think that's my go-to.
That's kind of nice. You can have your little secret stash. Any of the students look at it and you're like, don't touch.
And with Deirdre in Ireland, we truly are international. We're on every continent on the planet. So really great stuff. Really great stuff. Awesome. Well, thank you all for introducing yourself. Catherine, you got a question too? Start us off with our first real question.
Yeah. So we want to know a little bit more about what drew you to participate in Mission Possible in the first place. And then maybe what were your expectations as you went into the trip? Yeah, you can take a second to think about it if you want.
Yeah, so my sister had gone on Mission Possible, I think, a couple times. She went to Gonzaga before I did. So she talked me into it, and I hadn't really found like something to do with community engagement before Mission Possible as a freshman. I kind of felt lost in that because that was like the first time since maybe middle school that I didn't have like a regular service something going on in my life, and so just felt like a good idea. I really wanted just to find like service and community on Mission Possible because that's what my sister said she found. So yeah, and I think I didn't really have any expectations. Like she said it was great, but I don't always believe her because she's my sister. So yeah, my leader that year just didn't tell us anything. Like I had no idea what I was going to be doing in Tacoma, like absolutely no idea. So I didn't really have any expectations, and I think it was better that way because I didn't have anything to be disappointed by and everything to be grateful for. So yeah.
I was talking to a friend who I think had done it before, and she just had a lot of excitement about it and just explaining like how cool it was and how like unique of a program. And I think her excitement was just like infectious. And I was like, okay, well, like now I'm in, I'm sold. Like after one conversation, and I had done like service-oriented activities with my church before, but I was really excited to see like kind of how the Jesuits do it, I guess, because like as a sophomore, like understanding a little bit of like the Jesuit background of Gonzaga, I was really impressed with like the form with the people idea. So that was something that I went into like looking for, and then I found like at Mission Possible in Denver.
Yeah, kind of similar to both the ladies that spoke before me. I had done service-oriented activities, the way Courtney put, in high school, and I really had a positive experience, and it was really eye-opening and really changed both my heart and my mind. And then when I got to college, I definitely wanted to kind of perpetuate that learning and that kind of broadening of my horizons. And so when I was looking for colleges, I wanted a college that had that kind of thing, and Gonzaga having Mission Possible was something that I looked for, and it was super awesome. And then when I got here, I walked in and I was like, hey, heard about Mission Possible, it's awesome. And I'm pretty sure I talked to Darcy or someone in the CCE office, and they were just like, yeah, it's awesome, you'll never regret it. And I was like, all right, cool, let's do it. And then went away on the week, and it was lots of fun.
Yeah, and similar for me as well. I'm involved with a lot of service stuff here in Ireland, mainly working with children with serious illness. And I'm actually an elementary school teacher in a hospital. That's my full-time job in Ireland. But I kind of was looking for other service opportunities and kind of to be able to work with different populations as well. So I knew I had a lot of skills working in that area, but I wanted to be able to try some skills and learn some new things. So I would always check the morning mail, and I would get the student mail and the faculty mail because I was both. So I went and had a meeting with Darcy and just found out what it was about. And then I said, cool, yeah, I'd like to apply and see what happens.
That's awesome. I'm glad to hear that someone's reading our morning mails, Deirdre. That's awesome.
Incredible. Yeah, well, thank you guys. For question 3, we wanted to kind of talk about some of the moments and stories and people that left an impression on you. We talk in the CCE about our experiences about this particular trip, the work that we get to do as transformative. And one thing I've been thinking about a lot is, I think the reason we ask the expectations question is because I've heard from a lot of students that, they want to make a difference in a week they want to leave an impact, they want to have this life-changing week. And while I think those things may be possible, I think it's really difficult to do in a week. And so when we talk about transformations, what I'm thinking more or less is not those life-changing, world-shifting moments that may or may not happen in a given week or on a given service opportunity. But the change in perspectives that you guys were able to have during this trip. And so the smaller transformations, the conversations with people, the moments that you laid witness to, the stories that you heard. So can you think of specific moments, stories, or people that left an impression on you? And how did they help to transform or deepen your understanding of the issues, of the community that you were entering into, and of yourself? It's a big question, so you guys can take a minute.
That's a big question, but a great one. I would say that, I mean, this has happened, and I have so many years of moments, so it's really hard to like culminate into one. But I would say that overall, all of the communities that I have been so grateful to be a part of during Mission Possible have had this sense of welcoming in their hearts and in their place that it really, really strengthens the moments that you have there. So nothing specific, but just the way that different organizations will welcome you as their own, almost like family, as a part of their community. And in that you have a deeper respect for that place and for those people, and those relationships become stronger because of their open hearts. And specifically, I feel like Neah Bay was a really strong example of that. They would just invite us to random things, and we had no idea what we were doing there. We almost felt like really weird that they were so welcoming with us, that we were a part of their celebrations. We were allowed in their traditional sweat. Those things were so like bewildering to us in the moment, but because of those experiences and because they opened themselves that much to us, we were able to do the same, and we were able to understand their struggle and understand the true oppression that goes on that reservation. So it's because of that open heart, like that is just so immense to me across all experiences. That open heart just like really changed mine. So yeah.
Thank you, Emma. Courtney?
I definitely, yeah, we had a lot of really amazing conversations and just experiences with groups, like Emma was saying, that were like just remarkably welcoming. You were just like bewildered by it. And Lexi like organized a really, really cool trip. And we got to like meet up with a lot of organizations before people started like more like lockdown because of coronavirus. But I think the one that just stands out to me so much is we spent a lot of time, we were dealing in Denver with immigrant like realities, like refugee and that. And we had just spoken to a representative of ICE, and he was kind of discussing like, oh yeah, like we focus on like criminals, but like we're pretty good at like finding people who maybe overstayed their green cards and then deporting them. And so most of us were like, oh no, like we weren't really impressed by that, but we were interested to hear what he had to say. And then the very next day, maybe the same day, a lot was packed into that week. We went back to Provisions where we had already met, and there was this guy, and he has this really, really cool, like, it's just an urban farm, and it's so much growth within this community. And I live in Colorado, and so like I had been told like, don't go to Aurora, which is like a terrible thing to say. But sorry, it's a long-winded response, but it was amazing because I got to ask him, I was like, this is very personal, but what was your like experience coming to the United States? Because it is so challenging to get a green card. And he like was just super vulnerable about his process and like explaining like, yes, it is very challenging and like it's so hard to do things the legal way, when legal paths are so restrictive. So to like intellectually know the process, but then to meet someone who like you're so happy is in America and like you're just so blown away, that really changed my perception, because I always knew that like we need more diversity and like it's great when people from all over come to America. That's like the whole point. But then just to have that personal conversation where he explains like, yeah, like sure, I wasn't like didn't have a green card for a little bit in America, but like here I am now, like this is what I've been doing. And now I can say with so much more confidence why diversity is important and like what the impact of immigration is, at least from his perspective.
Thank you, Courtney. Wow. Thomas?
Yeah, so I went to Neah Bay, where we worked with the Native American population there, the Makah tribe, and Emma kind of already stole my thunder and talked about her experience there. But kind of a personal story I had was when I met this woman named Becky who lived on the reservation, and she was kind of one of the younger elders. So like she was like an elder, but on the younger side. So she kind of helped us out and did a lot of active stuff. And I met her one day at the senior center, just having lunch. We were talking, just kind of talking about whatever, the ocean, whatever, the weather. And the next thing I know, she was like, "Oh, you're going to come help me do a job." And I was like, "Awesome. Like, going to get out to get to see more of the community." And so we went around the community and we got a lawnmower and then didn't have gas. We had to go somewhere else and get gas. And it was a whole debacle. And then we finally get there and we're at an elder's house. And she's like, "Oh, so I heard you did landscaping before. I'm going to have you like cut this elder's lawn and maybe like pick up some grass and stuff." I was like, "Awesome." And then she left. So here's me like this like white kid on a Native American reservation all alone, where with this elder inside. I don't know if they were watching me, but I definitely felt some eyes. And Becky was just like, "Yeah, go for it and give me a call when you're ready to be picked up." And I was just really moved by that, because like the trust. Like I met Becky maybe 45 minutes ago, and she already trusted me enough to like do her a favor, but just kind of like leave me on this person's property and trust that I was gonna do the job and do it well. And that really just kind of changed my whole point of view for the rest of the week. And it was like, wow, like if they can trust us like outsiders coming in, like how differently should we treat those who like come from the outside coming in? And so that really just kind of changed my heart, and definitely I kind of like approached situations for the rest of the week.
Awesome. Catherine, I think we do have time to continue along with the questions as they number 4. That'd be cool. You're muted, Catherine.
Thanks for the reminder. Yeah, Deirdre, if you want to sprinkle in any of the thoughts that you were having too, feel free.
So sorry, Deirdre. That's my bad.
No, don't worry. No, I for me, like the whole trip was just, I was kind of in awe for all of it. And I'm really glad that we had that time in the evenings to reflect and do our journal work, and even to just like debrief with the rest of the team just about the amount of things we saw and did. And I think especially coming from another country, they were not issues, I suppose. Like I'd be more aware of things that are going on in Ireland. I wasn't necessarily majorly aware of everything that was like of the areas we were working in. And I think before I'd gone on the trip, just by chance, I'd watched the Netflix show Undocumented, which I'm not sure if any of you have seen it, but I'd really recommend watching it. And kind of then to be sort of working with that population and going to all these places, you were kind of able to just, I suppose at least I'd seen some of it, but then I was there and I was just like, wow, like I can't believe we're allowed to be here. And I think something that stood out for me a lot was we went to a place called Casa de Paz. And that was a house, like just like a volunteer house that this girl, who I think is only like 30 years old now, but she set up, she just allowed people to come to her house, and every day at 6 p.m. people are released from the detention center. And sometimes they get a heads up, or sometimes they just go, volunteer goes, and they see who's going to be released, and then they're the first people to meet this person who may have been in there for 30, 40 days, we don't know. And then they come to this house and they're given like a meal, if they need like a shower or they need to stay the night, and people are there to help them like book flights to go back to where they came from. And we had the chance to go there, and we were just volunteering at the house, and we were just like cleaning and like chatting and stuff, and just I kind of couldn't believe that, you know, we don't know what happened to these people, we don't know the reasons why they came to the US and why they had to go into that ICE center, and suddenly they arrive in the house and like I'm just there cleaning the banisters of the stairs. I'm like, hi, how are you? And you know, just to have had that opportunity that you're maybe one of the first faces those people have seen in a long time. So that really stood out to me. And then the elementary school that we went to was a bilingual, biliterate elementary school, and that was so cool. And I think for me, I went to a bilingual school myself, so just being able to talk to the kids, and kind of even like the kindergarten kid straight away to me, he said like, what's your other language? And I just thought it was really cool that he automatically assumed that I spoke a second language. So I was teaching them bits of Gaelic too. So, and that's only a small amount. I could go on for ages, but they were just kind of the two biggest ones that stuck out for me.
That's awesome. That's so cute. Yeah, I feel like there's so, like, one of the things that's so crazy special about those trips is like just meeting people that you probably like, I mean, who knows, but like in worlds of walking around doing things, like probably wouldn't have met them otherwise, kind of deal. So that's so cool. I was thinking about how wild just this transition from like spring break was. Obviously people were joking at the beginning of spring break, like we're not going to have online classes, or like maybe we'll have online classes. And then like, boom, it becomes the reality like every single day. So I'm just kind of wondering, like, what has it been like coming straight from that setting of having those intimate conversations or really like vulnerable experiences on a day-to-day basis, and now just kind of like doing your everything, like your everyday thing in quarantine. Like it's not like coming straight from school, I imagine, but what's been running through your heads?
It's been really weird for me. The transition after Mission Possible has always been the part I hated the most, or the hardest part for me, that I've always wanted to like make better for others. Because it's almost like a culture shock where like you're fully immersed in this different idea or like this different community, and your thoughts are so like they're running free and they're so specified on this like one issue, and then you come back to real life and then you have all this stuff going on, and you still have those feelings and those thoughts in your head, and the comparison of those two when you come back to campus is crazy, and it's really painful when you have that moment of grief, but it's really, really necessary. So it's been weird this year not to have that, and it almost feels like I'm missing out on a crucial part of the experience without having that pain that I've always hated. So that's been a good reflection. Yeah, so I'd say the best way that I've been able to reflect without that feeling is just to keep writing about it. So I kept writing about it like the week after, just so I could keep those moments fresh. Since I was leading, I couldn't write as much as I typically would, so I just took the time to do that. But yeah, I would say one of the most important parts about Mission Possible is that feeling of grief. And so I'm really bummed that we didn't get to experience it this year, but I'm so grateful that I was even able to go on the trip and lead the trip this year. So
Thanks, Emma, for sharing.
I would also say it's definitely like frustrating because you get so fired up and you like learn about things and you see them in a way that you've never seen them before, and kind of have like more of an idea of how you could get involved. And as someone who lives like 45 minutes from like where we were mainly spending time, I so badly just want to like get in my car and drive there and be like, how can I help today? Like, what's going on? But like that's not the reality right now. Obviously the shelter in place is like more important than whatever like assistance my time could have. But I think I've been coping with it just by like telling my parents all of the stories and like just like talking their ear off about like what happened that week. And then when I talk to my friends, like just bringing it up, like I'm just like that person who came back from like almost study abroad. I'm like, well, I was in study abroad, like but it's like it's better because that's like, because then they can try to like see things the way that, even though we're on the trip, but they get to like know how my perception changed, and maybe I can like change their perception too of like, because in our community, it's just cool to share stories. I think that's been like a helpful way to like deal with the frustration of not being able to do anything right now.
Yeah, I guess it's nice that that audience is like locked in the house with you. You're like, I need a bouncing board right now. That's awesome.
Yeah, just like everyone said, it's been pretty strange. Like hustled back to school and then got my stuff all straight away and then headed home. And so I was planning on slowly unpacking like my experience over the course of the semester and having people to talk to, and that hasn't really happened. But I've been spending a lot of time outside lately. That's given me like time to think and just kind of time to like marinate on these ideas. And definitely something we talked about on our trip that we just kind of like, that I've been doing, is kind of when someone asks you how the experience was, instead of just giving a super simple like, oh, it was great, or like that was really fun, or something like that, saying like it changed me, to kind of like start a conversation and to tell them like the good parts, the bad parts, the parts that like made you think, the parts that were fun, the parts that made you sad, the whole thing, not just kind of like give them a summary, because like talking through the intricate details kind of like helps me unpack what I experienced and how I'm going to take my experiences to heart.
Yeah, I also, which I mean, it was strange for everybody, but I got back, and then I think 4 days later, I was on a flight back to Ireland. So it was definitely a very kind of stressful time. And then you've had such an amazing experience, and you want to be able to see people and talk about it and share it. So, it was nice though, because for Fulbright, they have a newsletter, and they send it out every month, and you're able to send stuff in if you want. So don't know whether it'll get picked or not, but I wrote a bit about Mission Possible and added in some of our pictures. And then as well, I got all our pictures printed, but they still haven't arrived yet. But I'm hoping to like scrapbook and make something, and just same as Courtney, I'm here with my parents, so I'm telling them everything all the time. And I think as well, like my friends who were really interested in it too. And as I said, like it was just such a different experience. Like we wouldn't get an experience like that in Ireland, I don't think. So I think even to be able to educate people here just about things that are global issues and happening in other places, and everyone's always I'm lucky, everyone's always been excited to hear about my mad adventures. They're always like, oh, that's just Dee off on her, and I go and do things in the summer as well, and they're always like, oh yeah, we'll see you when you're back. So it's nice.
Awesome. Thank you guys. You all started answering question number 5, which is around, the what next of this experience, and how you've already started bringing this back to your own communities. So I want to call an audible real quick. I have a question that's just come up as you are all sharing. On one of the other immersion trips that we run, Justice in January, there's a priest that we meet with in Tucson, Nogales, named Father Neely, who talks about this concept of humanizing, accompanying, and complicating as like a way of entering into these experiences. And from hearing from all of you, we're sharing the joys and the deep learning maybe that we've taken from these experiences. But I'm interested in, if any aspect of entering into a community that's not your own was complicated for you. Was it difficult or challenging to enter into a community or a space that is not native to you, that is not familiar to you maybe? So Emma mentioned like how folks are so welcoming, and how like she didn't expect that. And then Thomas mentioned, his identity and his race being a white man on a Native American reservation mowing the lawn. Those things can be complicated, right? So to any of you and all of you, we can go down the list. If you don't want to answer, you didn't prepare for this, that's fine. But if you have an answer to that, what was complicated for you? What was challenging for you about this experience? We could start with Emma if she's.
Yeah, it's definitely complicated. It makes me think a lot about Chicago, and Anthony and Darcy, you can probably remember that this was a huge conversation that we had. We were mostly all white, or partially. So it was hard. We were staying on the south side of Chicago, and we were working with people that were suffering from police violence and these issues that are so hard for you to understand, and gang violence. And I had no idea that, I mean, I knew about the danger of the south side and the stigma around that and the stereotypes, but I didn't know the real true struggle there. And so to come in and to be interacting with these people, you just feel like an outsider and that you don't belong and that you're doing something wrong almost by being there, which is not true because you're being an ally. And so it's just like coming to that understanding of like, I'm here, I'm being an ally, I'm not trying to like save anyone, and that's not my position. So it is a really complicated feeling. And I'm just like thinking of this one moment where we were at iGrow Chicago and they asked us to come up with a presentation or like a list of ways to combat police brutality or something really complex like that. And we were all just like, what's happening? We have no experience with this. And so that's like a really complex feeling that it's like really hard to describe, because we're not trying to like tell them what to do, but in that moment they were almost asking us to. And so it was like really hard to grapple with that feeling of like, I'm not, yeah, you know, I'm sure we've all felt it when we've gone on these trips. So, but yeah, that's just one moment where I was just like, this is crazy. I'm not sure what you want from me. And I think, sorry, I'm going on so much, but I think Chicago was definitely, when I was talking about the grief of like after Mission Possible, that was definitely the hardest one for me to deal with, just coming from like that immense struggle that they had and feeling like such an outsider, and then coming back to this and then feeling like more of an outsider because what am I even doing to help anymore, you know, because I can't. So
And Emma, I remember that conversation. I was with you in Chicago when that happened. And from what I remember, it wasn't part of our planned programming. It was like an impromptu conversation with some guests who arrived. Yeah, it was so complicated because the folks that we were connecting with who were from the South Side, who were running the programming in the organization, already had an understanding of their issues, an understanding of the population that they were working with. They came from the community. They had solutions or proposals that they were already communicating with us, like in conversations, right? Like, so when the other outsider group came in and asked us to like provide like college, you know, experience about what we thought, it was like, oh, this is troubling in some way, right? So I agree, and I think that that's an experience that comes up in our communities when we enter into something that's not ours. We always have to be cognizant of the power dynamics that are at play, and that like having a college education is a privilege in so many ways, and having a secondary education is a privilege. And so that's, gosh, I forgot about that experience, so thank you for reminding me of it.
In the Denver site, we were also like primarily white or white passing and like very different in education and just a lot of different labels that you might put on people. And we had an experience where we went to this community center. It was a community of individuals, primarily adults from different backgrounds with different native languages, and they were all English as a second language learners at various levels of English fluency. And we started off, and my only thought was like, oh no, because the room had been separated into those two rooms that had been put together. And everyone from our Mission Possible group was standing in a little circle in one room. And then everyone who wasn't Mission Possible, like who actually was part of that community, was at different tables on the other half of the room. And I was like, this is not going well. Like, this is exactly what you don't want, is to have like an us and them dynamic in any setting. And so I was like already just kind of freaking out about it. I was like, this is not going to go well. And then we all separated, and like Lexi told us we had to sit next to other people. So we like got over that social awkwardness and like sat down with people we didn't know and introduced ourselves. And at my table, there was this couple from Albania, and they were like, I think in like language level learner, not at level 1. And it was like challenging for even me to like hear their names and like repeat it back to them, because it was just something that I was not, I don't know, it was challenging. It was complicated. And then we went through this like process of talking about different American holidays and like special buzzwords, like who do you spend 4th of July with? And like someone would be like family. And it was like going pretty well. And like it was like the vibe had changed a little bit to be a little bit more social. But I was still worried about this couple that I was sitting with, because it was challenging for them to like, you know, interact. And I was like, oh, this is frustrating for them, because it doesn't even seem like they might be at a high enough level of English language knowledge to participate. And that like is frustrating. And I started like drawing, like I drew a family, like a little stick family. And then I like wrote family, and then I like, gave it to the woman that I was talking to. And then she went up to the poster where we wrote like, who do you spend 4th of July with? And someone had already written family. And she goes and like practices writing the word family underneath of it. And it just like was really, really cool, because first of all, how challenging would it be to be an English language learner, like when you're at any age, but like as an adult. And it was just an amazing surprise that like I had no idea when it started off. I had no idea how like we would like make friends and bond, and like it would be a good vibe at the end, and how much like people can get out of just like that communication. And of course we learned so much too, and like it's just good to talk to people who you wouldn't normally. But that was really amazing, because it was so complicated and like challenging at the beginning. And when we left, like the vibe was completely different.
Yeah, so Emma kind of already alluded to this, but the thing that was kind of complicated for me is when we got there initially, I felt that some of the I overheard some of the community members kind of like muttering under their breath, like, oh, like we don't need to be saved, and like because like having that savior complex is like so detrimental to a community, and I was kind of uncomfortable about it, because I was like, oh, like how do I show them that I'm not here to like save them? I'm just here to like be in community with them. And I really struggled with that. And I struggle with that every time I go on a service immersion trip. Like there's a fine line, and like where do I find myself? And one day the thing that really like changed how I viewed it was I was riding in the truck with Teresa, another one of the younger elders that kind of like was our guide for the week, and she kind of like was in charge of us and told us what to do and stuff, and it was great. And just kind of in passing, she was like, oh, it's so nice that you guys are willing to help. And like, it's such a simple sentence, but it really changed me, because I was like, at the end of the day, that's all it is. We're just like, we're not here to like save anyone, or like because we're better than you, or like you need saving. Like this community of people is great on their own. If we never came, they'd be fine. But what was impactful was, it's not that we're going on these trips to like save people. We're doing them because we want to educate ourselves, and the service we do on them, it's nice. And it's like, I feel like it's a funny word, like nice is kind of been watered down, but it's like, you do it because I'd want someone to do it for you. I chop up firewood, I pick up trash, I paint your house and stuff like that. It's not because you can't do it yourself. It's because I'm giving you a little bit of free time, or something like that. It's just something nice that we can do to say, hey, we're in this community together. It's not me and you. It's kind of this idea of us for a week.
Yeah, and to piggyback off that, I think that's something I was quite aware of going into the trip, and I talked about this when we had our pillar meetings as well, because I think working in a hospital and I work with a lot of minority groups, in my work in Ireland. And I think I struggled when I first started working in that area, that like you're not going to change a cycle. You can't change a society. You can't change. But what you can do is if you can help for that hour that you're with that kid, or, you know, when you're with this community, this idea of just like, it's such a buzzword, but like just being present and just trying to focus on what you're able to achieve and what you can do in that moment. So I also agree with Courtney that ESL class was definitely probably where I struggled the most, because I would do well in like communicative events and things, and I went over to a group that didn't have somebody sitting with them, and the group were very, very quiet, and like I really wasn't. I was trying everything. I was acting. I was doing games. I was doing everything, and I really just wasn't getting a response from people at all. So I think also in those moments to be able to recognize if you also need help too. So I like went over to Lexi and I was like, hey, do you want to come over and join my group with me? Because sometimes like it was really a nonverbal group. People weren't speaking at all. And I find even sometimes in my own job, I bring the teaching aid with me, because sometimes even if Lexi and I were having a conversation, people were maybe joining in and listening and realizing, okay, these guys are not that scary. They just want to talk about like festivals with us. So yeah, I think I also would say that would stand out as kind of a trickier one. But as Courtney said, leaving, sure, we were all friends. People were getting selfies and people were asking some of the girls for selfies as well. So, you know, I think we did make an impression in that hour, but it was definitely challenging at the start.
Yeah, goodness. I mean, I think there's so many aspects of what you all are sharing that adds that notion of complicating these experiences. And to Thomas's point, I just remember really briefly when I was a Jesuit volunteer in Albuquerque, a very similar experience happened where we were down in the plaza, and I shared that she asked us why we were there. We shared that we were Jesuit volunteers. And when we shared that, she said, so what are you doing here? And one of our participants said, oh, we're here to help, we're here to serve, blah, blah, blah. You know, trying to be, generally speaking, the language that we were used to speaking. And she got very upset and started kind of yelling at us and saying, you should know your history, know your history, know your history. Don't come here to save us. We don't need your help. And at first, I think a lot of our group was super like confronted and offended by what she was, but like even reflecting on it a minute, I think what Emma was saying was that she was so surprised people were so welcoming, because in a lot of the communities I think that we're entering into, there's history of oppression, a history of universities interacting in negative ways, of young college students interacting in negative ways, and so there's no expectation that people should be welcoming to that, right? There's so many reasons not to be, or to, so when they are, it's like incredibly surprising. But yeah, how do we know our history? How do we engage in our communities responsibly? You know, how do we share our humanity with people in ways that don't replicate the oppressive systems that we are thinking about as we're on these trips? I think it's immensely complicated. So thank you all for wrestling through some of that and being a part of that trip and being so reflective today. Catherine, if it's okay with you, I think we should open it up to some questions. How do you feel? You're on mute too.
Yeah, that sounds good to me. If people want to just put that either in the chat, you can put it in the chat, or you can message either Anthony or I independently.
Joe Johnston is up first, and he said, oh, let's see. Let's see in the chat. Sorry, I'm taking a minute. Catherine, can you see the chat? I can't
yeah,
get over to it
I can. So Joe asked if y'all could talk about your attempts to try and share about your Mission Possible experiences back in Spokane, or home, once you've returned. Just because there's so much that you've experienced in 1 week. So how did you attempt to share that all in depth with others who hadn't been with you? And could you potentially describe a conversation that went poorly or anything that went well? And is there anything that helped you share more deeply or effectively once you returned? It's a loaded question. Nice question, Joe.
Really great question. Yeah, it can be pretty hard. In my experience, I think it's received better by those who have been on Mission Possible or similar trips in the past. It's almost like they understand like the feelings that you are and did go through. So they definitely receive the stories better, and I think they really absorb it. But I have had conversations that have gone poorly for sure, especially with the topic of whaling that we discussed in Neah Bay. And that was what I really wanted to share, because we had asked when they were giving us the talk on whaling, what do we do with this information? Like, what do you want from us? And the response was they wanted us to share their story with others so that everyone knows that this is not an inhumane process for them, that this is something that their community needs. And so I've tried to, it's gone well with a lot of people when talking about whaling, but it's definitely gone poorly. And I think that you have to go in knowing that some people might have understandings, or I guess knowledge, not real knowledge, but they just have perceptions and like stereotypes and stigmas against certain things, especially whaling, before you come into that conversation. And so you have to be ready to like really fight that with some some hard facts. And it's not always going to be like the emotions and feelings that we felt were so strong. You know what I mean? Like, you have to like remember those logical arguments that were given to you during the week, so that you can give that to other people as well, and like maybe send them and direct them to articles and different resources online, because maybe you can't, I'm not an expert on whaling, so I would direct people to articles and like send them different things that I thought would be helpful and would give them a good perspective on like maybe some actual accurate information other than what they've been hearing from their experiences in the past. So it can be really hard because people do have those perceptions and biases that you have to combat if they're really against what you're trying to talk about. So I think I definitely experienced that mostly with the whaling and with the idea of restorative justice, because the criminal justice system is definitely something that people are like, no, this is going to be here forever because it's this long-standing thing, but it's really corrupt in a lot of ways. So I think those are issues that are definitely hard to bring up, and you have to be ready. You just really have to be prepared, I would say.
I like that idea, Emma, of like phoning a friend with the article almost. Like, it kind of, like, no one is necessarily expecting you to be an expert on those things. And especially if you don't feel like you have the ability to relay that, like, that's not your job. So I think that's a good idea. I like that.
I think the best stories to share are the ones that were like already told to you. Like, it's great to share just whatever your experiences were in general, but the ones that I think are the most impactful when you retell them are the ones that were already like told to you, because then they've already kind of been like storied and like, you know what perspective you're speaking from, and that's like, then it's not as argumentative, because I have had a similar experience where I've been showing my opinion on something, and then it's so easy for someone else to be like, well, I have a different opinion, and then it's an argument as opposed to like you sharing a really, really cool story. And so there's a story that I was told about, like, there was a bunch of gang members in this community in Denver that were tagging buildings, and then through like a process, like they like had kind of a confrontation and like a chat, I guess, and then now years later, those same gang members, a few of them are making like beautiful murals on the sides of buildings. And so that's so much like cooler to like tell someone and like showing the mural so they can like really experience it, than to be like, well, you can't just write off people who are in gangs and think that they shouldn't be rehabilitated. I think the conversations I've had that have gone negatively have been when it's like in this like righteous anger place, it's become an argument as opposed to just like a story of an individual or a group of individuals.
Yeah, Emma yet again kind of spoke into what I was going to talk about. But when it comes to like talking and kind of like sharing my experience, especially last year, I was kind of like stressed that I would like almost like let down the people that I interacted with. And I was like, oh, I gotta like tell people exactly what happened and make them feel the feelings I had. And I was super stressed, and it turned into me not wanting to talk about it because I was like afraid that I was gonna let people down. And so like kind of when you're gonna tell people, like definitely tell them your experience and like all the feelings, the good ones, the bad ones, the ones that made you uncomfortable, but more importantly, not fearing that you're going to let them down, but knowing, but having like the mindset that by sharing your story, you're like doing them, you're doing them, I don't know, like not a service, but like kind of like commemorating your experience with them by sharing the story and not like stressing over the minute details. And what Emma talked about with the whaling, when we were there this year, we talked with one of the whalers who was actually the one that killed the most recent whale in 2005. Shoot, I don't remember his name. Darcy, do you remember his name?
Theron Parker.
Ah, yes, Theron. And Theron was just kind of like talking about the process, and we were all intrigued, and it was awesome. He was doing it, and at the very end, before he left, he's like a super smiley and like nice guy. I remember him looking us each in the eye and saying like, "Go out and tell the story, so the world knows we're not a bunch of like filthy savages." And that just really hit me, and I was like, "Whoa!" Like, wow, that's deep. And so every time I tell my stories, I always make sure to remember to like tell that line and like share that with people, because if it meant enough for him to like look me and everyone else in the eye and like tell us this like a super important little like piece of advice, I was like, then the least I can do for him is like to convey that to everyone I tell this story to.
Yeah, I agree with a good few of those points. Like, I think, especially coming from another country, like trying to explain the experiences that I experienced, but knowing that a lot of my friends and family probably won't ever get to go to those communities that I got to go to and got to experience, and things that are maybe that aren't happening here in Ireland. So just trying to, yeah, make sure you're doing justice to these people and telling their story, but also, yeah, like directing them to websites or directing them to different things. Or, I talk a lot about that Netflix undocumented, but I think that's a really important show because it, especially like before I watched that, I didn't even know about those things that were going on in the US. So I think being able to use those resources, and as Emma said, you don't have to be an expert. And I think as well, people like just hearing human connections and human stories. And it doesn't always have to, you don't necessarily have to talk about the big complex issue. You can literally just be like, hey, I met this person, this is their story, this is what happened. And trying to fill people in, but also recognizing that people may never understand your experiences, and they're happy for you, but they're kind of like, okay, cool, like that was great, moving on. So I think keeping those connections with the people that were on that trip with you. The camp that I work at, they talk about, like, they say you can leave camp, but camp never leaves you. It's kind of cheesy, but being able to connect with people from your group and people from CCE, and just like reaching out and talking to each other and debriefing with them, because you can't always, as much as your friends and family want to understand it, maybe they don't. And it's nice to be able to talk to people who went through that with you.
Incredible, incredible. Well, I know we're at time. I want to honor that we're at time, and really just thank you all for your vulnerability, for sharing your thoughts, your ideas, what struck you about these trips, and the complicated parts, the messy parts of them too. It's really wonderful to get a chance to reflect on some of that with you all. And I know we had some amazing people as guests in our chat today. Other advisors, Jim Simon, Jimmy Bay. We have alum, I know, who have gone on Mission Possible as well. And so this trip has been going on for 20 plus years now. There's so many people in this network, I think, who have the potential to connect. And so about this experience, about these very unique experiences. So yeah, we can find ways to do that as a community. I think that'd be incredible. I just want to thank you again. Catherine, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, before shouting out Mission Possible in general, I just think it's really special, all the different insights that you all bring, no matter how many times that you've done Mission Possible or whether or not this has been your first time. I think it's been really special to hear like the range of experience that you have. So thank you for being honest about that, just like what Anthony was saying. And then thank you everybody too. A, everyone who tuned in, but then B, everyone who made this last year's Mission Possible happen. Gonzaga is a crazy special place that allows for this kind of like face-to-face experience and then reflection follow-up. And this was like an incredibly hard year to continue to have that space be available. So you know who you are. But thanks for showing up to that too and making that happen. That said, if anyone who is interested in Mission Possible following years or potentially being a leader, we want you to get in touch with our program manager, Darcy Phillips, and we can throw her email in the chat. Actually, Darcy, you want to throw your own email in the chat? And or go to our CCE website for more information on what this trip would look like. Our next episode for Community Chats is going to be in another week or two, and we'll be announcing that theme as the time approaches. But yeah, thanks so much everyone for making the time to hang out with us. This has been really special.
Thank you. Yeah, another record-breaking episode. And so thank you for joining us for the second episode of Community Chat. Much love to everybody. Everyone at home, across the country, across the world. Stay in, stay healthy, stay safe. We love you. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.